Why would anyone pay $69 million for a JPEG and a hyperlink?
Anything you got to say about NFTs?
I think they're the future. I think they're gonna take. I'm high, but
the tail wags the dog for buying like a pudgy penguin.
Why don't you go look at some non-fungible titties, nerd?
Welcome, my degenerates. The rest of your life starts right now on NFT Mania. The no bullshit approach to all of these weird JPEGs and hyperlinks that people are paying huge lifetime fortunes for. We started talking about these sorts of things on our flagship show, Market Mania, and they just started to take up so much space that we realized this was going to have to be kind of its own carve out. So we're going to give it a try here on NFT Mania. We'll try and do these Wednesdays. If you guys like this, let us know. If you want us to keep it going, we'll sure try and do that. Depending on how much viewership we end up getting over the next few weeks, will determine whether we keep doing these. But I'm going to have fun doing them in the meantime, because I really am trying to figure out this whole NFT space. Some of it makes sense to me. Some of it sounds like total bullshit. And the people that are going to help me sort it out are the sharpest guys I know around this space. We have Michael Laake at MDustis there, and of course, the venerable Brett Richey. So I want to open it up first and foremost. Before we start talking about NFTs, let's figure out what the macro space looks like, and then we'll dig into some of the projects that we're interested in here. So first thing I wanted to pull up was these charts that you had sent us here, Brett. Looks like some OpenSea monthly volume based on Ethereum sales. Why don't you talk us through this? What do we see in here?
Yeah, so you see, obviously, the first half of last year was pretty quiet. We had a kind of a blow off top. I believe that's August. It settled down through the winter. January was a massive month. February came back down a bit. March is off to a slower start too. If you look at the daily volume, you see it trending down. And to me, that makes sense. One, like January was quite a big spike, but there's a lot of uncertainty right now between like the war with Ukraine, gas prices going crazy. Make like JPEGs are, it's a fun thing to do, but it's not going to be, if it's between filling your car up or buying a JPEG, these are going to go. So it makes sense that it would be a little quieter right now. But that can change quickly, as we've seen before.
So it is interesting to watch these rise and fall. And of course, as the news gets bad, it's hard to make the case that a cartoon is a good store of value. But, I get the feeling that this is just one dip right before a future of these things really taking off. And I guess I'm wondering, how much is the floor price on a lot of these NFTs going to correlate with the price of, say, normal cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? Are they going to diverge? Or there's some value that's just going to always find its way in here as those prices increase?
So I think that the floor price, like typically I just trade NFTs thinking in ETH, so I'm not really looking at the price of Ethereum. If I buy something for 0.2 ETH, I'm hopefully going to sell it for 0.25 or higher ETH, kind of regardless of where the ETH price goes. Not everyone thinks like that. A lot of people do think in USD. I do agree that there's going to be way more users. I don't know if in this page there's the chart of the overall users on OpenSea over time, but it's really total OpenSea traders over time. That bottom right one, and if you look at it's barely over 1 million, and
1.4.
That's wallets though. So like I'll use a bunch of different wallets on OpenSea. So I'm 12 of those people. There's a lot of people that, so the real amount of users is still quite small. When you look at the amount of money in the space, it's a pretty small group of people making these trades on here. And the other thing that's interesting, you look at the monthly active traders, we'll see where this month ends up. But February, we saw a big drop in volume compared to January, but the monthly active traders stayed the same, which I think is a pretty good sign. So there's a lot more people coming in. The question is, are they going to come buy the old bags? Are they going to buy new stuff? The jury's still out. Like, just because a lot more people will be in NFTs most likely in the coming years, it doesn't necessarily mean that your bags are going to be going up. They could still just be totally dead.
It seems like most will be dust after too long, because there's always another NFT project that's coming up that's going to have whatever utility, whatever roadmap, whatever the buzzwords are.
Depends.
One of the buzziest ones we're seeing is, well, at least an interesting one here, is one that you showed us here, Michael. It was these Medici NFTs. What's the story behind these?
Yeah, so I've been following this a little bit closely for, roughly 3 to 6 months now, just as a participant in crypto Twitter. And it started off with one of these accounts revealing themselves as being Snoop Dogg. And that led quite a ripple through the community, because it was this one Twitter account that Cozumel Medici, I believe it's called, that had been basically an underground participant in our community without using his celebrity or status in any way at that time, and truly was a one of us moment, right? You have that meme from the movie where they're all pounding the table, one of us. It felt like that to the community. But then he started and I'm gonna dig much more into this, because as we see here, I'm only familiar with this artist because I have a daughter that listens to pop music. This is a relatively popular, big Spotify or YouTube type artist that has probably a massive following and a huge collection. And these types of celebrities probably envy those people that are anonymous and rich. They can't live normal lives. They can't just go places and do the normal things that you and I can do. So they have to live in these gated worlds that is kind of untouchable sometimes. So to have an ability for them to shift into a pseudo anonymous account that only a certain number of big followers are going to attract to, that actually weeds out a lot of rent seekers from the community, people that are trying to flip memorabilia, etc. I think it's just a really interesting use case for what these things are, what they're becoming. And if there's going to be somebody like Snoop Dogg mentoring a whole bunch of up and coming artists and possibly launching NFTs that are directly related to these particular people, that's something that, I think is hard to ignore.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, I a lot of times think these projects are sometimes a little frivolous or silly, or based on some I don't know, more buzzwords than anything. But when you can start tying real world people and real world value of celebrity to some of these things, now you start to talk about something that has real value over time potentially. That's always my concern when I invest in these. I worry about liquidity. I worry about value over time. It's nice to catch that one that rises up real fast. Maybe you catch a Bored Ape or a crypto crypto punk or whatever. But boy, they're hard to pick. But getting an inside loop on something like that, that might be a good spot. You might convince me to move over to one of those.
I got no conviction here. I just think that, when it comes to use cases and the why, I thought this was just a really interesting, explanation and a revealing situation.
We had
celebrities are big. They're going to, they bring the masses to some extent, right? They have huge reach. They got big fan bases, and a lot of celebrities like NFTs, which is just going to get more people involved in the space.
Yeah, they do normalize this stuff for us. We just had a message on our chat board. Hafiz Hamani says, I believe that there are a lot of people considering tax implications and are selling for those purposes as well, hoping that after tax season we'll see a return to volume. So that's definitely something to consider when we watch those floor prices go up and down. There's another neat project came across our desk. It was the gutter clones. Brett, I don't know much about these. Can you? Oh, it looks like they're sold out. They minted 28,000 of them. They're already sold out. Why don't you walk us through these? You got any of these, Brett?
Yeah, I bought a bunch of them actually. So the Gutter Cat Gang is a project that launched shortly after Bored Ape Yacht Club. They've taken, I would say, a fair amount of inspiration from the Bored Ape roadmap. Bored Ape did their mutant drop a while ago. So the Gutter Cats, there's 3,000 cats, rats, dogs, and pigeons. Started with the cats, and they've had they did 3 other drops. So 12,000 existed in the Gutter Cat world ahead of time. So all 12,000 of those each get 1 free vial for the mutants, and then they sold 16,000 more. So 28,000 total of these clones. What's interesting is that's the biggest set out there by a big company. Clonex, Bored Ape Mutants, and Meebits from Larva Labs behind CryptoPunks. Those are all capped at 20,000. So 28,000 is the biggest project we've seen, which adds some level of risk to it, because when there's that many pieces, there's just going to be more sellers. If the buyers don't show up, it could be risky. But I don't think it's that big a deal, because it's at a very cheap price point. They minted basically at 0.1. So 12,000 got them for free, and then the rest of us paid about 0.1 each. And it's like a pretty nice accessible price point to a collection that has a much higher value. Like the Gutter Cats, last I saw, they were like a 6 ETH floor, or 5 or 6, and the other the other pets were like over an ETH also. So they look pretty cool. If you check out the OpenSea link, I believe is in there also. So they're up, trading up a bit, 0.13, 0.14. That's for like pigeons and rats. The actual cat is like 0.4 for the mutant cat pre-reveal. These are still going to break out of the vial. We'll see what they look like. The teasers they showed looked pretty cool, but again, there's 28,000 pieces. So how much differentiation is there going to be in the set? We'll see. But yeah, I'm holding. I haven't.
These vials just become the new thing. Do you have to combine with anything else?
No, you'll just. I think it just the vial opens and you get.
Gotcha.
You can see here like these are pigeons, right? So you're going to get like a mutant pigeon, but you don't know, is it going to be rare? Is it going to be common? Like what are its traits? That's still up for grabs. So I think these are pretty cool.
This one's been a tough one for me. I definitely recognize for sure the historical value of CryptoPunks. I definitely understand the product market fit for Bored Apes, and anything beyond that in this upper echelon, like even these Azukas that have just skyrocketed relatively recently, I struggle to see like what the incentive is to participate in these communities. I certainly don't know much about the art. I certainly don't know much about, potential returns, etc. And when it came to the Gutter Cats, it seemed like they were the first big copycat that like you can't really call it a copycat, right? It's like it is kind of its own thing, but like you even mentioned, there's so many things that were kind of lifted from the Bored Ape Yacht Club. To me, it just felt like it felt like the first wannabe that got really popular. And I'm not saying that it can't. There's certainly a lot they could deliver. There's a lot that they could bring. But
they have been delivering. I do agree that they've been a wannabe kind of project, as you say. But like again, in crypto, like it's a much more open source ethos, right? Projects are Sushi Swap copied Uniswap. Nobody cares.
Justin Sun's made a whole career out of that.
They've done a good job of building that community.
Yeah. I understand if my sentiment came off as negative, and I want it to come off more as neutral than anything is my intention.
Yeah, I think these are cool, but we'll see where they go.
Well, I thought this part was interesting, lending some legitimacy to the whole NFT space. Now these things are starting to be used as collateral from microloans, which I think is very clever. We had this tweet come out about these people are offering, if you put up $527.50, and you can receive either $550 back in 150 days for an APR of 10.38%, or you can receive a legendary Bol NBA Top Shot moment, or Bol, or however they're pronounced.
Bol, I believe.
Bol.
Right. I didn't even know he had a legendary Top Shot moment, so this is clearly like the fringest of legendaries. But I mean, what is the floor on a legendary? Most would argue that this is a roughly appropriately collateralized piece. It is a loan. Could the legendary dip below 500 and get liquidated potentially? And that's the risk that you could take on either side of this trade. And I think, I personally don't own any legendaries, but this adds a lot of utility if I were to acquire some that, okay, if I'm willing to pay, whether it be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 for what most of the legendaries are in Top Shot, then I think that this is a relatively interesting use case to add.
Well, that is interesting.
I like these.
I mean, collateralizing microloans with NFTs, I think, is going to become very common. I think kind of like how the central banks now collateralize the money they print with U.S. treasuries and things like that. I believe NFTs may have a space here as like assets that collateralize other loans. Now we'll have to locate those assets that hold value. I think Top Shot definitely will, just for the brand and the momentum it already has. But it's strange, but you could imagine like a Top Shot backed loan system on any other DeFi platform. It's just getting a little crazy out there. So we'll keep an eye on what's possible with these NFTs going forward. We're going to wrap our very first episode of NFT Mania here. But before we do, I just wanted to grab one more question from the chat here, or at least one more comment. How do you feel about 3L, Coolmans, and Cool Pets, Brett?
I don't love any of them. I was excited for Cool Pets. I got on like the whitelist for some Twitter giveaway, and I minted it, and then I sold it for like 2.2 pretty early because they kept pushing everything back, like the public sale, the if you had a pet, the allow list sale, all of that was pushed. Then the game got completely pushed. So I was going to buy more of the eggs to like play the game. I was going to get 3, 1 to hold, 1 to ramp up quick, 1 to play the game with. But there's no game yet, right? I don't know. The devs over there have been slow and they've missed a lot of targets. It's not insurmountable to turn around, but I want to see that first before I would buy into that project, because you might just be holding that egg for a long time waiting on this game that who knows when it's coming. 3 Landers and Coolmans, I'm aware of those projects. I've looked at them, never bought in. Don't have a strong opinion there. I really haven't done enough like research into those. I briefly looked and passed. So
when you said 3L, I was hoping that had something to do with Blau, the musician who is heavy into DJ or heavy into NFTs, and
he's got stuff. I mean, he's got Royal, which is a music platform, and then he does his own thing. He buys, he's definitely active.
Right on, boys. Well, that's some good info. I got to start looking into a little bit more of these. I'm really just starting to get into the NFT world, so you guys are going to be my Sherpas into this weird new world.
Sorry in advance.
Yeah, that's quite all right. I'm ready for what comes. We are going to do, of course, our pick of the day moment here in just a sec, but I got to remind you all, this is definitely not investment advice, and you should be doing your own research. So let's get to the NFT Mania pick of the day. Let's see if transition works. It does. Okay. So, all right, Brett, what is your pick of the day for us here?
I'm rolling with the Vessels over on Tezos. This is 15 Tez to mint, which is about $45. It's a set of 5,000. It is a lore-based NFT, which is a sector that I'm really interested in. Sort of trying to find the next J.K. Rowling or George R.R. Martin coming up through NFTs. I think, everyone's looking at like the play to earn and like promising a lot of nonsense. Lore is something where a story-driven world, you can actually really deliver that. You don't need a ton of like vaporware promises. And this project had a couple of issues with minting. It's restricted more than was supposed to by wallet. Each wallet can only mint 10. And then it's on Versum, which is a brand new exchange on Tezos. It's not on Object yet. So it's this sort of like hidden away little project that I think is cool. It's $45 or so, and it's out of 5,000 total pieces. I like the risk reward here a lot. It's going to be on Object eventually. It's going to mint out, and Tezos is a chain that I'm quite interested in. It's eco-friendly. An NFT here is like the same energy as sending a tweet as compared to Ethereum. So artists really like Tezos. There's a lot to like here. It's definitely not a short-term play. For me, this is a long-term play. But I like this project.
Interesting. Now, I'm always skeptical when people put the characters ahead of the content. You know, for example, we're going to create a bunch of these heroes, and then we're just sure someone's going to make a video game, and we're just sure someone's going to feature these characters, and then that's where the value is going to come from. That's just so many carts ahead of a single horse, in my opinion. I worry about some of this stuff, but I'm also learning that in this new world, sometimes all of that conventional wisdom gets turned on its head, and real things can come out of this. So with that in mind, Michael, why don't you let us know your pick of the day?
Yeah, with that in mind, the two generals problem is one of the biggest problems in game theory, and getting a lot of generals to coordinate and act in unison is what crypto is probably arguably most famous for. So when it came to, and I mentioned Blau, the DJ, recently, when it comes to the NFT that my pick of the day is, I'm going to go with Galactic Gang. This was brought to my attention by a good buddy of mine who happened to have followed this artist, Chris Dyer, for like 3 to 5 years prior to this collection being launched. And one of the things that I've noticed as I've attended some of these larger, EDM shows and these big festivals is that it takes hundreds of people to make these shows happen. And when I realized how much individual artists it takes for something like that to actually exist, I thought NFTs was one of the first use cases that it was going to solve all the art issues in that world, because they need hours of digital graphics and they need all kinds of animations, and then they got to mix music with it, and there's all these things. I think this collection has been pretty solid so far. I minted one of them. I regret not minting more. They've already done like lots of hippie driven networking events. They had a concert in Denver already. They had a convention at ETH Denver. They had like a painting with a twist that was done over Discord. They do like meditations and like all these like things where like you have people that you can all get together and do cool stuff, right? And all these little tiny niches add up to something really cool, I think. So it's definitely a long-term play for me. I think that the music scene, the graphic design scene, and all that jazz is going to get really ramped up, and there's definitely a lot of psychedelic influence involved. So take that as you will.
You had me at psychedelic. This is a convergence of many different energies, music, art, and finance. Such a strange, brave, weird new world, but I gotta admit, I'm kind of learning to love it. So, we are going to wrap up our very first episode of NFT Mania. Please let us know if you liked it, if you want us to keep doing this. I'm going to use the old Market Mania outro here because that's what I got, but we'll keep developing the show. If you guys want us to do it, we'll have our own outros. We will be having guests on the show. We'll be following amazing projects, just giving you that insight you need to make money on JPEGs. With that in mind, also they're asking if I can get the link to the picks of the day. Yes, I'll put that in the description. So, and you can also follow our Twitter. We always put our picks of the day on our Twitter after the show airs. So please comment, like, subscribe, and catch us next Wednesday for NFT Mania, or you can tune in tomorrow morning, or afternoon rather, for more Market Mania. It's getting wild everywhere we look. So with that, thank you, boys. We will talk real soon.
I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. I never sleep if I don't have. I never sleep. I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. Time to right the wrong. So your hands in the air if you like the song. If you're going over there, take it twice as long. Last time ain't talking about Tylenol. Oh, I bet you'd like to know. You can come around the way if you're trying to go. If you want to switch lanes for a pot of gold or a domino, out of control. The usual. Get mad cause I'm looking at your girl. Switch it up. I do it so much louder than everything you've heard. Everybody heard at the word that the world wasn't turning. Act like you're in a jury. However, turn it where I would turn it. Can't a lie like it's Mississippi burning. Don't act like you're in a daze. I imagine you to look the other way. Couldn't clear space on my mind. Was afraid of the time. Strobe lights like in the moonlight. I'm in the mood right now. How about